I'm Nadia.
I'm Maya.
And today we're going to be reading the Alice in the Time Machine. Why do we say Black Lives Matter? This is part 3. Part 1 is on Nadia's castle. Part 2 is on Meet the Lees.
Maya guys,
But remember to comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and don't miss out of any of our videos. Let's get started, but we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, and we want 29 likes on this video. Mommy's at the side. Say hi.
Hi, Meet the Lees, gang, 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 gang. Happy Black History Month.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say it's Black History Month, and it's Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is like this week or next week?
It's on Monday.
It says written by Deville Alice, illustrated by H.H. Pax. It was the perfect Saturday afternoon in Brooklyn at the Alice home. 9-year-old Jackson and his father Deville were watching the basketball game in the living room. Then Jackson carelessly asked, "Yo, Pops, why do we have to say Black Lives Matter? Doesn't everyone know that?" Because the court actually says Black Lives Matter.
You would think so, said DeVale, but isn't it racist to only say Black Lives Matter? Asked Jackson.
DeVille turned off the TV and turned to Jackson. Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that only Black Lives Matter. It was time for reinforcement, so DeVille called for Kadeen.
Kadeen walked into the living room with 3-year-old Kaz on her hip and 4-year-old Kyra on her tail. "Why are you screaming as if they were a fire, DeVille?" asked Kadeen.
"Because I'm dealing with something more dangerous than fire," said DeVille.
Go get it.
Alright everybody, head to Jackson's room. It's time for a history lesson. "History is boring," said Jackson. "I'm too young for history lessons," says Cairo. That's my little cousin's name. Shaking his head, "Well," said Kadeen, "how do you expect to know where you're going if you don't know how you got there?" "That's right, and history is never boring when you're learning the truth," said Dev L. excitingly.
DeVale ran to Jackson's room in excitement.
"I can't believe we're missing the game for a history lesson," Jackson said. "You and your big mouth," Jackson said Cairo. DeVille was super excited because he knew that the boys had no clue what was behind the closet doors. As DeVille opened the closet doors, a huge bright light followed by a gust of wind finally got everyone's attention. Jackson jumped up. "What The KD cut him off before he could even think of finishing his sentence. Watch your mouth, boy. Cairo jumped in. Daddy, is that a time machine? Said DeVille. Wow. The inside of the closet that holds Jackson's clothes and sneakers now looks like a spaceship. Kadeen buckled Kaz in and made her way to the coffin. This time machine is only accessible with parental guidance. Buckle up! It's time for an adventure, said Kadeen. Kadeen typed in the year 1619 as DeVille raised his hand high and yelled, "Countdown!" We all say truth on 1. The family counted down together. 3, 2, 1, true! As Kadeen smashed the big red button with warp speed, the family zoomed to a different dimension where 1619 was the present day. It is so cool, rocket ships in the moon, thunder. Slavery in August of 1619, a ship settled on the shores of Fort Monroe in Hampton, Virginia. An English nobleman by the name of Robert Rich unloaded approximately 20 African captives off the White Lion ship. This sparked a huge turning point in chattel slavery in America. Chattel slavery was legal under the law and allowed for enslaved Africans to be bought and sold as property for free labor. Civil War from 1861 to 1865. The northern states known as the Union and the southern states known as the Confederates fought over slavery and state rights. The 7 Confederate states, South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas wanted to continue to own slaves and expand slavery into the West following the election of President Abraham Lincoln. The Confederacy declared war with the hopes of starting their own country, but ultimately lost to the Union. Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, which symbolized the freedom of enslaved Africans. Congress formally passed the 13th Amendments to abolish slavery. 2.5 years later, in 1865, the Union Army entered Texas on June 19, 1865, to mark the end of the Civil War and enforce the abolishment of slavery. Today is known as Juneteenth. The Vagrancy Act, although formally enslaved African Mexicans were now free. A law was put in place in Virginia, then followed throughout Confederate states that forced any person who appeared to be unemployed or homeless to work in plantations. This law directly targeted newly freed blacks looking to rebuild their lives after the war. In 1866, the Emergency Act remained a law until 1904. Black hold, although the Confederate South lost the Civil War, its leaders waged a political war on the freedom of black people. In late 1865 into 1866, southern states like Mississippi, I like that, and South Carolina being enforced laws which made it mandatory for blacks to work under labor contracts and carry written documentation. Newly freed Southern blacks were at risk of being arrested and getting into forced labor. Again, they were not allowed to vote, carry weapons for protection, gather in group worship, or learn how to read or write. Although northern and western states did not enforce the exact laws, many discouraged free black from residing there. Colored only. Jim Crow during the Reconstruction era, former Confederate states created laws that demanded separate public spaces based on race. These spaces include restrooms, restaurants, schools, libraries, and public transportation. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court used the Plessy versus Ferguson case to uphold the separate but equal doctrine. After the Reconstruction era, the facilities for blacks were rarely equal, as the majority were either underfunded, inhumane, or non-existent. In fact, many public places in the South refused to create separate accommodations for blacks or refused them access altogether. Racial segregation by Jim Crow laws were considered constitutional until they were overruled by the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Ku Klux Klan in the mid-1860s, the KKK formed to prevent black people from gaining political power and sought to suppress their rights. The group upheld white supremacy by using voter intimidation, and targeting violence towards blacks, now known as African Americans like I am. This secret organization was composed of Southern white men that often wore white robes, face masks, and burned crosses to evoke imitation. Convict leasing many Southern leaders in governments and in businesses wanted to find a new way to make money after chattel slavery ended in 1865 as slavery was now illegal. Several states used the Vagrancy Act and other black codes to imprison free black people, forcing them to work for free as prisoners. In the southern states, convict leasing existed in America under different names until it was abolished on December 12, 1941. Tulsa Race Massacre. Although many free black people struggled to rebuild their lives after slavery, some got their footing. O.W. Gurley, a black landowner, educator, and entrepreneur, built the Greenwood business district known as Blackwell Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He supported other black entrepreneurs to develop Black Wall Streets over 15 years as a beautiful community filled with homes, businesses, and schools. Memorial Day weekend 1921 Black Wall Street experience and events. It would never be covered from. It all started when Sarah Page, a white woman operating an elevator, screamed after Dick Rowland, a young black man, entered the elevator. Rumors and accusations from sexual assault escalated during the police investigations, and an outraged armed mob of white people rioted Black Wall Street. As many as 300 black people died, over 800 were injured, and 35 city blocks were burned to the ground. Sadly, this event has been left out of many American history books. Redlining in 1934, during the Great Depression, the National Housing Act was enacted to address housing instability. The Federal Housing Administration was, what does that word say? These are some hard words, Mommy. What does this say word? Up to that. Established to launch a mortgage insurance program. Which consequently led to further segregation, and gaps in fair opportunities between white and black communities. The new housing market provided more housing and neighborhood improvements for white middle class and lower middle class families, while pushing black families into urban housing projects. Additionally, housing credit for mortgages in black neighborhoods was often dented. Special identifiers were extended to real estate developers who were building neighborhoods for white Americans with the understanding that no homes could be sold to black people. This promoted segregation and contributed to the wealth gap seen today. Police brilliantly in 1954 during the Civil Rights Movement, black Americans began experiencing extreme physical violence at the hands of the local police. These attacks were photographed and caught on camera while protesters demonstrated nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience. Local governments often militarized their police forces against nonviolent black protesters using water hoses, dogs, batons, and excessive force that resulted in physical assaults, numerous arrests, and deaths. The Black Panther Party, after decades of using civil disobedience and nonviolence protests to combat racial injustices and police brutality. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was created by college students Bobby Seale, Huey Newton, and I think that's it. 1966. The core purpose of this group was to empower the protect black neighborhoods against police brutality and respond to the Black Panther Party. The U.S. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover led and developed a program called COINTELPRO to discredit and criminalize the party. COINTELPRO was a counterintelligence program responsible for causing major internal conflicts within the party, and these assassinations of many influential parties leaders like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. The war on drugs in 1971, just a few years after the end of segregation and gaining the right to vote during the Civil Rights Movement, President Richard Nixon announced to target black Americans and leaders by disrupting the over-policing their communities. In 1986, Congress passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, providing funds for more militarized police forces in black communities and harsher sentences for drugs-related crimes. This created soaring arrest rates for black people. Mass incarceration. Although slavery ended 131 years earlier and segregation 29 years prior, many black people struggled to thrive after civil rights movement because of redlining, police brutality, and federal legislations that counted to target the terrorized black communities in 1994. The largest crime bill in the history of the United States was passed. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. This bill created a surge in the number of arrests of black men and women. They were getting harsher sentences while private companies began profiting from prison industrial complex. Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter. In July 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement was created by Elisa Garza, Opal Tomati, and Patrice Cullors. After the state of Florida failed to convict the murder of an unarmed 17-year-old black boy, Trayvon Martin like Martin Luther King, using the state's Stand Your Ground law, the Black Lives Matter movement mobilizes where youth meet most on social media and is a declaration to revolt against police brutality and a corrupt criminal justice system that profiles, targets, profits off of, and oftentimes kills black Americans without consequences. I want mommy to read this page.
Hey babe, said Kadeen. I think it's time to get back. Okay, Ellis's time to go back, said Zavelle. The family put on their glasses and Zavelle hit the red button. A huge white flash appeared and the Ellises were instantly home.
Now back in Jason's room after a journey that covered over 400 years, Zavelle said, "So you see, we say Black Lives Matter to remind Americans that they forgot about us when they said with liberty and justice for all. So all we are asking for is equality. Right, Pops?" asked Jackson. "Yeah, bro, it's crazy that we still have to ask for it," said Deville. Jackson runs to open his closet. "Hey, where you going?" asked Kadeen. "The history lesson is over. You don't want to finish watching the game with your dad?" "Are you kidding me? We need change, and I can't change anything while watching a game. We need action," exclaimed Jackson. Yeah, said Carl. Yeah, says Kaz, speaking for the first time. Jackson pushed his mom and dad out of the room and closed the door. Do you think I say too much? DeVille asked Katie. Not at all. If they're anything like you, you'll work together. You change the world for the better, said Katie, as he gave DeVille a warm hug. We got work to do, gentlemen, said Jackson. Yeah, screamed Kyle and Kaz in unison. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe to Meet the Lees and hit that notifications bell so don't miss out on any more videos. Peace.